this celebration. I joined a very select group. As I looked at it, I said, how in the name of goodness did you get there? And if my mother, Carolyn, was there, she said, boy, I told you you had it in you, you just had to get it out. I got, as a person here who gave me the opportunity to serve this conference, and that was Doug Eccles. And Doug, thank you. I didn't know what you were putting me into, but thank you anyway. Commissioner Burch allowed me to remain in this position, and he took over the position, and I thank you for that. My involvement in basketball began right after World War II. Before most of you were born in this room. I was a student athlete at Federal Teachers College, which is now Federal State University. I was there on the football and the track scholarship. But if you were a scholarship student in those schools, you had to do something all 3 seasons. And the coach of the football team, who coached the baseball team, who coached the track team, who coached the basketball team, made me the manager of the basketball team. When I was in high school, we thought basketball was kind of a sissy game. Somebody did until they got it wrong, so you could play baseball. And you played football in the fall, but it was fairly warm, but basketball was cold and you go inside. I went out for basketball because it was raining one day. I didn't want to walk home in the rain, but that was my last touch with basketball in my high school years. But I was the manager of the team there at Federal Teachers College, and being the manager, I was given the opportunity to work scrimmages, to intersquad scrimmages. If you want to really get a taste of basketball officiating, officiate games that the guys know you, and the guys that go to class with you, and guys that know your name but don't call you by it. The other, where I got started, I kind of lost the interest in it then, and I took a teaching job in a little town called Mount Olive. Some of you know Mount Olive, the pickle capital of the South, pickle capital probably of the world. And I was a JV coach at that time. And we went to play a school, I believe it was Pikeville. Pikeville gym was it didn't have a gym floor, it had a cement floor. One of the officials for the varsity game did not show up. And they were wondering who the second official was going to be. They must have 2 officials at that time. So the coach from Pikeville came over to our bench. I was the coach of the JV and the assistant coach for the varsity. And he said, well, you know, the other official hasn't shown up yet. I said, we need a second official. He said, Jim, why don't you do it? I said, I can't. I'm one of the coaches. It doesn't make any difference. We all whip you anyway. And they did. That was my first taste of actually working a game where people could yell at you. And I wished I had had the sense then to save the money that I got for that game. I got $3. The principal pulled it out of his pocket and says, you're not a regular official, so I can't give you the regular people. That time it was $5. He said, but I will pay you for helping us out. He gave me $3 $1 bills. I wish that fame was somewhere. It would be a nice thing to have at this time. From that unorthodox beginning, I ended up at the Final Four, 1977. I had a great career as an on-floor official. I went all over the country. I went to Europe twice, went to South America twice. I had a lot of fun. And the thing that I tell people, please don't forget, I made a lot of money too. And I tell officials, don't ever forget the fact that they pay you for what you do. I know every official would work the Final Four for free the first time. As soon as they found out that people wanted them to work, they would want to get paid for it. And I always tell the officials I work with, I said, remember, you're working for a check, and you're also working to do the best job that you can. I got many basketball stories, and it's awful hard for me to keep this to 2 to 3 minutes. I can just talk hours. That's the problem we have when you get an old man up in front of us. We don't know when to stop.
We knew the risk.
No, we can't. I got into the Carolinas conference in the mid-60s. I think the guy that was the supervisor was named Joe B. Hahn, I think. And I remember going to the first clinic. I remember back in the late 60s, black guys had big heads of hair. I had a big bush, and long mutton chops. And we were sitting at the table listening to the clinician, and Joby came over and said, I need to talk with you after this meeting. I said, what did I do now? So we go out in the lobby and he says, don't take this the wrong way, but you need to trim your hair. He told me the wrong thing. I kind of went off on him in a nice quiet way that I used to do. And he never bothered me again. The mutton chops was the part he didn't like. He said, you look like a rebel. I said, maybe I am a rebel. I got a couple of stories I want to tell you about. Please forgive me if I go over my 3 minutes. I've probably already gone over. I had a scrimmage game at North Carolina A&T. They were playing Elon. And the coach of Elon, if I'm correct, was Bill Miller. Bill Miller was known to have a few pops. And we were out on the court at a scrimmage, a closed scrimmage. Nobody in the gymnasium except the players, the managers, the coaches, and the 3 officials. We only work 2 to take 3 to a scrimmage so we can do a rest. And I make a call. Coach Miller's down here, and I make a call on that end of the court. When I turned to come this way, he met me on the court. Well, you know what I did. I met him with the old hat. The old hat in basketball officiating is a technical foul. And he said, you can't do that. This is just a scrimmage. I said, you can't do that either. Get off the floor. We had a few other words we passed on, but I can't share in mixed company. The game is over. I take a shower, and Coach Cal Irwin comes and said, Coach Miller wants to see you. I said, Coach, I don't need to see that guy. He's a piece of work. So he said, no, he wants to see you. So I go over, he was sitting down on the bleacher, and I go sit, he puts his arm around, he says, Jimmy, I like you, boy. I hope you stay in our conference a long time. I said, what did you say? He said, boy, I like you. Well, using boy to a black guy back then was kind of negative, but I accepted from him because I never had a few props. The next one, I got 2 more. I hope you'll bear with me. I worked a game at Guilford. I think Guilford had a gymnasium that looked like an old barn. I think if I remember the school at all. And I worked with a guy that was one of the most demonstrative officials in the world. Lou Bella. You see, someone said demonstrative, I knew what I was talking about. I worked with Lou Bella. Well, Lou Bella back then was a legend. Just the fact that I got time with Lou, I was up in Blue Heaven. Okay? We go up and down, Lou throws the ball, we go up and down the court a couple of times, and the ball goes out on the inline. And as you're taught, before you put the ball back in play, you check to see where your partners are. Well, I checked to see where Lou was. I couldn't find him. Lou stands up. He says, hey, Jimmy, go on, you're doing fine. He was sitting with the cheerleaders. That's a true story. Another story, this one is probably the most touching one for me as an individual. I had a JV team, as I told you, at Carver School in Mount Olive. This is in the middle 70s. And I took them to Raleigh, piled them in my old piece of car, took them to Raleigh to see NC State play. And the coach at NC State was, I can't remember his name, but it'll come to me. It's one of those senior moments that some of you haven't had it yet. You got something to look forward to. No, it's not the case. Stormy Norman, all right? But Stormy Norman was a great guy to work for. His wife always sang the Star Spangled Banner. I took these kids to see State play. Took them back home, and they were trying to do all those things that they saw NC State's team do during the warm-ups and doing their practice. And we fast forward to 77, 72, something like that. And I'm at NC State. Now, when I took these kids to the game, they had a section reserved for colored patrons. Up in the nosebleed section, I think it was section 112. They had $1 for the tickets. We watched the game, had a great time. Probably one of the best experiences I had as an individual, watch the kids be happy about doing something. fast forward to this game at NC State. I'm the referee. Norm Sloan's wife stands to sing the Star Spangled Banner. I'm standing there with my partner with the ball. And as she starts singing, I look up in the balcony and tears come to my eyes. My partner says, we go down the dressing room, she says, what's you crying about up there? She's going to sing the Star Spangled Banner. I said, let me tell you the story. I said, 20 years ago, I had to sit upstairs in a section reserved for colored people. I said, here I am now, the referee at NC State, only in America. I can go on. I'm like most old guys. We got lots of stories to tell you. Most of them are factual. But you got to understand, some of my facts I make up too. But again, I'd like to thank the commissioner and the selection committee for honoring me at this time in my life. I knew it would happen. And I want to thank my wife, who's a basketball widow 5 months out of the year. While I'm on the road doing the things that I like to do. Please stand up, Craig. She always tells me, she said, now you be sure you behave. Because I've been known to do the wrong thing at the wrong time sometimes, all right? Again, thanks to the committee. I appreciate it, and I feel honored to be with this group of select inductees. Thank you very much.